Well, I didn't think it was going to happen. I really didn't, but he's gone. Anthony Weiner has resigned in disgrace after being brought down by a deadly combination of Twitter, hubris, and Breitbart. Now, look, this isn't just a scalp for conservatives. It's another important milestone in the slow glacial change taking place around us as the new media, that'd be folks like your friendly neighborhood PJTV, outperforms and displaces the old mainstream media. Leading the vanguard of this glorious people's revolution are from Allentown, Pennsylvania, son of labor, bane of running dog progressive lackeys and fat cat liberal exploiters. Comrade Scott Ott is in from Communal Brotherhood Labor out in the fields. Comrade, welcome. And from the workers' paradise of Denver, Colorado, Minister of Information and enforcer of pundit equality for the enlightened masses, the Wadka pundit Steve Green enthusiastically celebrates this round of ruthless self-criticism and re-education. Comrades, you can actually see it beginning to happen. The revolution is underway. Scotty, the fact that the new media broke the ACORN scandal while the mainstream media sat on the sidelines embarrassed the old media. Weinergate embarrassed them too. Now, you used to be a journalist. Do they like being embarrassed by guys like Andrew Breitbart and James O'Keefe, do you think?
No, and I was just thinking as you were doing the introduction there, I was thinking, you know, there was a time when you'd see some sort of corruption going on in public office, or you suspected something was going on, and you thought some guy was a weasel, and you'd say, gee, I wish somebody would go after him. And now we've reached the day where you go, hey, I think I'll go after him. I think I'll do something online on Facebook or Twitter or a camera or something like that. It's amazing. It's freedom of the press for the man who owns one, and everybody owns one. No, the mainstream media doesn't like being shamed like this, but frankly, the idealism that they taught me in journalism school was that we were going to be the kind of people who would do this, who would go after the scoundrels and who would make it all public knowledge.
The internet may save us, ladies and gentlemen. I've been saying this for a couple of years now. Steve, the second part of the question I think is even more important. Do you think the mainstream media will be embarrassed into, you know, actually doing their jobs? Do you think this is going to push them to do their jobs?
If they had any shame, they wouldn't be doing the job they're doing right now.
Oh, Steve
there
Green
are
for the
some
win.
bright spots, I should say. Yeah, there are still some tough, honest reporters, people I really admire, but the system has become so corrupt. You know, Eisenhower warned us of the military-industrial complex, and he was right about that. You know, peacetime procurement is just awful and expensive and terrible. But the real danger has turned out to be the government media complex. The Washington Press Corps, they love to play gotcha or expose a juicy scandal, or at least jump on a juicy scandal somebody else finally exposed. That Twitter hubris Breitbart trifecta is just, that's a deadly combination. But the press doesn't do its job of getting the truth out to us. The media in D.C. has become a part of this system. The government half of the system is nearing financial collapse because of fiscal bankruptcy, and I think the media half is nearing collapse because of its moral bankruptcy. Bring it on sooner, faster, please.
Bring it on, baby. Scott, I mentioned James O'Keefe earlier. You know, I met him once or twice at CPAC and the like, but I finally had a chance to talk to him a couple weeks ago. And this kid from New Jersey absolutely gets it. You know, I realized just how smart this guy is when he said that he set up his ACORN sting video so that it wasn't about politics, but rather about right and wrong. He wasn't just pretending to be a pimp trying to open a brothel for his pretend girlfriend, Hannah Giles. He told them he was trying to open a brothel featuring a dozen underage South American girls. So it wasn't about prostitution, which the left would have yawned about. It was about sex slavery with minors, and no one can ignore that. Is that brilliant, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. And we've talked in a recent episode of Trifecta about it seems like that O'Keefe and Breitbart and guys like that, they can't come up with any scenario too outrageous for the left to bite on. I mean, what else are they going to come up with that's crazy? I mean, who could possibly think that they were going to walk into some sort of clinical operation and they were going to get assent and assistance from somebody on running a child prostitution ring? They literally can't push these people far enough because they have no moral compass. They're there just to do what feels right to them in the moment. And frankly, may Mr. O'Keefe's tribe multiply.
Yeah. John Stewart, who's actually treated this very fairly, said, oh, you want to set up a string of underage teenage brothels? That's a Form W9D. Steve, let's talk quickly about the ethics of this. O'Keefe later went on to set up a sting operation on NPR executives where his people posed as Muslim Brotherhood jihadis, trying to give them millions of dollars to lessen Jewish influence in the media. Now, again, Steve, O'Keefe didn't just show that they were anti-conservative. Of course they're anti-conservative, but he made them admit that they were being anti-Semites, and that's what got him. But is this whole undercover thing ethical, do you think?
Well, Scott hinted at this a moment ago, and the media is supposed to pride itself, on comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. And I don't think there's anybody more comfortable than the people in charge of a quasi-government media outlet. And talk about shameless, they're already feeding at the government trough, but hey, why not take money from the Muslim Brotherhood too? And I don't think there's anything less American than a state media corporation. Public broadcasting, our founders would have sneered at that, feared that, like they would have at Internal Revenue Service. Well, I guess what scares me isn't that there are folks at NPR who may or may not be anti-Semites who just because they want to take the money, but that we have a national public radio at all.
Yeah, there you go. Well, folks, now on to the master, Mr. Andrew Breitbart. Scott, Andrew knows the media so well that he sets a trap and watches as they walk into it, and they are utterly unable to stop themselves. First, they ignore the story, then they deny it, then they trivialize it, and finally they have to cover it. By releasing the pictures slowly, both with ACORN videos and with the Weinergate pictures, he builds up the pressure because they don't know how many pictures or videos he's holding. And finally, they just crack. Now, this is real journalism. As Steve said, it's afflicting the comfortable. Do you think this is hope for the future?
Yes, it is. And it reminds me of when I was a young journalist, and maybe a year into the business, I was at a conference in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, among journalists, and they were all talking about and lamenting about the fact that they didn't have any sort of professional cachet like a doctor or something like that would have. And they thought that there should be some sort of journalism professional certification process so that they could have this kind of thing that people would look at and go, oh, a journalist, and they would have greater credibility and more respect. And I actually said at this meeting, I don't want people to trust me any more than they now do. In fact, I wish they distrusted me. They were unhappy with that. I don't know why they were unhappy with that.
You're the real deal, Scott Oddie. Scott Odd's book called Laughing at Obama, Volume 1 has shot to the top of political comedy list at Amazon.com. It's also available for the Kindle, so go get one. Steve, after the ACORN story broke, the New York Times wrote a letter to its readers, those that are left anyway, apologizing for being so slow to get in on the ACORN story. Now, do you think that means that new media has arrived at last when the gray lady apologizes for not being on the ball compared to guys with a flip cam?
No, we're not there yet. Breitbart's doing some amazing work. We're not so bad ourselves sometimes, but let me tell you when new media will have arrived, and I don't think I'm going too far out on a limb here. When the next ACORN or Weinergate scandal arrives, when the next corrupt progressive bulwark goes down, look to the pages of the New York Times. If the Times broke the story, for fear of competition with new media, we will have arrived. But we'll have really arrived when the big story breaks and you look to the New York Times and it isn't there.
Ooh. We call that time October. Steve Green hosts the Weekend Blogs and Hair of the Dog segments here at PJTV, and he can be found at vodkapundit.com. Well, this Weinergate scandal was appalling, of course, but there's nothing new there. Mark Twain said that it could probably be shown by facts and figures that there is no distinctly Native American criminal class except for Congress. But there are two rays of hopes here. First is the emergence, it's still small and limited, of course, of an entirely new generation of real journalists doing real journalism. Journalism is supposed to be the body politic's natural immune system, seeking out and destroying lies and corruption. Right now, the American body politic has AIDS, but we're showing some signs of recovery. Now, even better to me, anyway, is the fact that Weiner was forced to resign. I really thought that he would be able to ride this one out and it would be business as usual. He didn't resign under pressure from Republicans. He resigned under pressure from Democrats. Congressmen and women of both parties have a long history of chicanery to live down, and I'm just glad that we as a people are not yet willing to tolerate it when it's been exposed. That's a little bit of good news to sleep on tonight. For the entire Trifecta team, I'm Bill Woodhull.